Welcome back to my channel, Famous and Fabulous. At the height of fame, Johnny Depp had everything: money, fame, and chaos. Behind the cameras, his world was falling apart. Then came a quiet confession that surprised everyone. He said he was saved, not by a doctor, not by a miracle, but by someone the world barely noticed in the storm. Vanessa Paradis, the woman who saw through the noise, reached the broken man behind the superstar and pulled him back from the edge. This is the untold truth of how love, silence, and loyalty saved Johnny Depp when nothing else could. Before the world called him a legend, Johnny Depp was just a boy lost in the noise of life. His childhood was not filled with glamour or glitter. It was marked by moving around, pain, and constantly going from one small town to another. He once said his family changed homes more than 40 times before he turned 15. His father worked hard, his mother struggled, and the young Johnny learned early that survival sometimes meant disappearing into your own imagination. That's where acting first saved him, an escape from the chaos that seemed to follow his real life. When Hollywood discovered him, it was like a spark meeting gasoline. He went from sleeping on couches to being one of the most wanted names in the industry. His look, his voice, his mysterious charm, everything about Johnny was magnetic. But fame is a strange friend. It gives and it takes. While the world saw a rock star actor playing wild characters like Captain Jack Sparrow and Edward Scissorhands, inside he felt emptier with every success. The more people praised him, the less he knew who he really was. Johnny wasn't just playing roles on screen. He was hiding behind them. The troubled artist, the weird dreamer, the rebel against the system. All of these became masks he wore to survive. Yet when the cameras stopped rolling, the silence grew loud. He was loved by millions, but felt truly known by none. The red carpets and the flashing cameras couldn't fill the hollow echo of loneliness that followed him everywhere. The lifestyle that came with fame only made the void bigger. The parties, the crowds, the nights that blurred into mornings. It was all part of a performance that never ended. Alcohol became a comfort, a quiet companion that numbed the pain he didn't know how to explain. He later admitted that for years he was slowly poisoning himself, lost in a spiral of addiction and hurting himself. Success didn't save him. It only built higher walls around his suffering. Behind the scenes, directors called him brilliant but unpredictable. Studios feared his honesty and admired his artistry. Yet Johnny was at war with himself. The boy who had once dreamed of peace and belonging was now trapped in a cycle of noise and shadows. He had all the attention in the world but no anchor to hold him steady. And that's when she appeared. Vanessa Paradis, the calm in his storm, the woman who didn't see a Hollywood superstar, but a man drowning behind his own fame. Before Vanessa, Johnny had been chasing meaning in every direction, through fame, through rebellion, through hurting himself. But her presence would soon give him something he hadn't known since childhood: peace. At this point in his life, Johnny Depp was a man with everything yet nothing. The houses, the rewards, the legends about his genius. All of it felt meaningless because he couldn't find home within himself. He was the product of his own success and a prisoner of his own pain. And when he finally confessed that someone had saved him, it made sense. Because before Vanessa Paradis came into his life, Johnny wasn't really living, he was surviving. This was a man before the saving. Brilliant, broken, lost behind the world's applause. A superstar loved by millions, yet desperate for something real. And what he found in Vanessa would not just change his path, it would quietly rescue him from himself. When Johnny Depp met Vanessa Paradis, it wasn't on a movie set or at a glamorous Hollywood party. It was in Paris, the city that breathes romance into every corner. The year was 1998, and Johnny was already the wild, mysterious star the world couldn't look away from. But behind the fame, he was exhausted, burned out by chaos, tabloids, and a lifestyle that felt more like survival than living. Then, across a crowded room, he saw her. Vanessa Paradis, the French singer and actress whose quiet grace seemed to steal the air around her. She wasn't chasing headlines. She wasn't dazzled by his fame. She had that natural Parisian calm that felt like medicine into his restless energy. Johnny would later say that in that moment when he saw her across the room, "My life as a single man was done." There was no big speech, no Hollywood drama, just a look that changed everything. Vanessa was unlike anyone he had met in the industry. She didn't play games, didn't need to be the loudest in the room. Her strength came from stillness. She was grounded, artistic, and refreshingly real. For a man who'd spent years surrounded by noise, her quiet presence was magnetic. She had that rare quality that made you want to breathe slower, listen more, exist gently. Johnny fell not because of passion's fire, but because of peace, something he had never known before. They built their life far from the spotlight. No Los Angeles mansions, no constant paparazzi chaos. Instead, they chose the south of France, lavender fields, quiet mornings, their children running barefoot on the grass. For the first time in his adult life, Johnny Depp had something the world couldn't give him: home. Not the kind made of walls, but of warmth. Together, they had 2 children, Lily Rose and Jack. Becoming a father softened Johnny in ways fame never could. He stopped running from himself and started slowing down for them. He often said that holding his daughter's hand or listening to her laugh made everything else disappear. Vanessa had created the kind of life that protected him from his own darkness. She gave him a sense of belonging, not because she tried to fix him, but because she simply stayed. Their home in France became his safe place. Johnny would later describe how different life felt there. No flashing cameras, no gossip columns, just ordinary moments that felt extraordinary. He painted, played guitar, cooked for his family. Vanessa made the world feel small and safe again. The same man who once felt lost in every crowd now felt whole in her silence. What drew him to Vanessa wasn't glamour. It was her authenticity. She loved him for who he was, not for what he represented. And in a world that constantly tried to shape him, that love was revolutionary. He once said that when he was with her, he didn't need to be Johnny Depp, the movie star. He could just be Johnny, the father, the partner, the dreamer. For years, they stayed away from the chaos that had once defined his life. The French countryside, the sound of their children's laughter, the privacy Vanessa fiercely protected, all of it became the foundation of Johnny's peace. He often called that period the most beautiful time of my life. Because in Vanessa, he didn't just find love, he found balance. She was a grounding force that kept his feet on the earth when fame tried to lift him too high. She didn't just enter his story. She rewrote the part where he finally learns what home truly means. There's a moment in every life when even the strongest person begins to fall apart. For Johnny Depp, that moment came quietly. Fame had turned from a dream into a storm, one that never stopped spinning. The parties, the headlines, the constant flashes of cameras. It was all too much, and beneath that golden surface, he was drowning. The alcohol, the sleepless nights, the isolation, all of it carved deep scars into a man who once only wanted to create art. But through all the chaos, one person refused to let him disappear: Vanessa Paradis. Vanessa had already built her own legacy in France, an award-winning singer, actress, and icon of elegance. But she was also something far rarer in Johnny's world, calm. When everyone else around him demanded more attention, more fame, more drama, Vanessa offered less. Less noise, less pressure, less judgment. She didn't try to fix him. She simply gave him space to breathe. In the middle of Hollywood madness, she became the one thing money couldn't buy: peace. Johnny often said that when he moved to France with Vanessa, it was like stepping out of a nightmare. There were no paparazzi hiding in trees, no tabloids twisting every smile. Just a small village, quiet mornings, coffee on the porch, and the laughter of their children echoing through the garden. For the first time, Johnny wasn't performing. He wasn't the rebel, the heartthrob, or the Hollywood legend. He was a father, a partner, a man rediscovering himself. But Vanessa didn't just give him love. She gave him roots. She taught him how to live in stillness, how to listen again, how to see beauty in simple things. He had been lost in fame's illusion for so long that he'd forgotten what it meant to be human. Vanessa reminded him. She insisted their children grow up away from the glitter of Hollywood, surrounded instead by art, language, and nature. She wanted them to know life, not just luxury. And through that, Johnny learned too. During the hardest times in his career, the moments when scandals threatened to destroy everything he had built, Vanessa stood firm. When accusations flew and the media attacked his name, she didn't run. Instead, she spoke out quietly, fiercely. In a letter that shook the press, she described Johnny as a kind, loving man who had never shown her violence, only care. Her words cut through the noise like a knife of truth. It wasn't the voice of a woman defending fame. It was the voice of someone who had seen the real man behind the myths. Johnny later called Vanessa his anchor when the storms of fame pulled him in every direction. She was the reason he didn't drift away completely. Their relationship, like all real ones, wasn't perfect. They had their fights, their distance, their separate dreams. But even after they parted ways in 2012, Johnny's respect for her never changed. He still calls her one of the most important people in his life, the person who reminded him of what truly matters. Vanessa saved me, he once said, not in the dramatic sense of a rescue, but in the quiet, human way that only love can. She didn't pull him from the flames. She taught him how to stop setting himself on fire. She gave him a reason to slow down, to love gently, to rediscover his soul through the eyes of his children. In a world where everyone wanted something from him, Vanessa gave him something back, himself. And maybe that's what real saving looks like. Not a grand act of heroism, but a quiet moment of truth shared between two people when the world isn't watching. For Johnny Depp, that truth had a name: Vanessa Paradis. When Johnny Depp talks about the moment Vanessa Paradis enters his life, he doesn't do it like a man recalling romance. He speaks like someone describing a rescue. Not the loud, dramatic kind you see in movies, but a quiet, patient saving that happens when someone truly sees you. For Johnny, who had lived decades under blinding lights and constant judgment, Vanessa was the calm after years of chaos. She didn't just love him, she rebuilt him. When he met Vanessa, Johnny was spiraling. Fame had taken its toll. The media hunted him, alcohol numbed him, and Hollywood had turned into a machine that never slept. He had spent years trying to fill the silence with noise, films, parties, and distractions. Then Vanessa appeared like still water after a storm. She didn't try to change him. She didn't tell him who to be. She simply offered what the world had taken away: peace. Their home in the south of France became his sanctuary. No photographers hiding in bushes. No agents whispering about box office numbers. Just sunlight, lavender fields, and laughter echoing from their children, Lily, Rose, and Jack. For Johnny, who had grown up moving from place to place, never knowing stability, this life felt like magic. He finally had roots. He once said, "That was the only place I ever felt truly home, and it wasn't because of the mansion or the fame. It was because of her." Vanessa insisted on raising their children away from Hollywood. She wanted them to have a childhood untouched by the madness of fame. She taught them small things that mattered: how to speak softly but stand tall, how to create art, how to live simply. And in those lessons for the children, Johnny found healing for himself. Watching her mother their kids reminded him what real strength looked like. Not loud or controlling, but patient, gentle, and full of love. When the storms came, and they always did, Vanessa stood firm. During the darkest times in Johnny's public life, when tabloids tore him apart and rumors tried to destroy his name, Vanessa's voice cut through the chaos with quiet conviction. She didn't rush to interviews or make emotional statements. She wrote a letter instead, a calm, honest declaration that shocked the media. "He is a sensitive, loving and loved person," she wrote. "In all the years I have known Johnny, he has never been physically abusive with me." Those words, spoken simply and truthfully, carried more weight than 1,000 headlines. That was Vanessa's way. No drama, no shouting, just truth. She protected him not with noise, but with dignity, and that protection became his shield. In a world that thrives on tearing people down, she gave him something to stand on, her unwavering belief in who he truly was. But her saving went beyond public defense. Vanessa changed the rhythm of Johnny's life. She taught him to enjoy the silence between projects, to savor ordinary mornings, to find beauty in the stillness. The man who once drowned his thoughts in alcohol now spent evenings painting, playing guitar, and cooking for his family. It wasn't an instant transformation, it was slow, real healing, and that's what makes her role so profound. She didn't save him in one moment. She saved him every day in every quiet act of love. Even after their separation in 2012, Johnny continued to speak of Vanessa with deep respect and gratitude. He has said that what they shared wasn't just love. It was life-changing. "Vanessa saved me," he admitted. "She gave me 2 beautiful children and a calmness I never knew I needed." That calmness, that grounding became the foundation he would carry long after she was gone from his daily life. Vanessa Paradis didn't walk into Johnny Depp's world as a movie star's girlfriend. She walked in as a mirror, showing him the man he could be if he stopped running. She was his balance, his anchor, and his reminder that even in a life built on fame, the truest salvation comes from simplicity. And that's how Vanessa saved him. Not by lifting him out of darkness with force, but by teaching him to stop fighting the light. She showed him that love isn't loud, redemption isn't glamorous, and peace isn't found in applause. It's found in the quiet heartbeat of a home. Share with someone who never stops believing in you. When Johnny Depp finally spoke about Vanessa Paradis and their years together, it wasn't a tabloid headline or stage confession. It was quiet, raw, and deeply human. For a man who had spent decades hiding behind characters, masks, and movie roles, to hear him say, "Vanessa saved me," felt like a truth that had been waiting years to surface. He didn't mean that she rescued him from some Hollywood disaster or pulled him out of a burning building. No, his confession wasn't cinematic. It was real. It was a kind of saving that happens when a person loves you so gently that your chaos begins to calm itself. It was about finding a home inside another person when the world outside is too loud. When Johnny spoke those words, it was as if a chapter of his life quietly closed. The years he had spent with Vanessa, raising their children, escaping the madness, building a life in the French countryside, had become a sacred memory. He admitted that it was during that time he felt most at peace. The world saw him as a rock star of cinema, a man of mystery. But Vanessa saw the man beneath, the boy who still longed for safety. She didn't save his career, she saved his soul. Johnny often described life with Vanessa as the only time I ever felt truly home. For a man who had grown up with constant movement, instability, and emotional storms, that sense was everything. She gave him what fame never could: stillness. But what makes his confession even more powerful is that it came after they were no longer together. By 2012, their relationship had ended. There was no screaming breakup, no public meltdown, just a quiet goodbye between two people who had shared a rare kind of love. When he was asked about it, Johnny's voice softened. It wasn't easy on me, he admitted, and it wasn't easy on the kids. He didn't blame her. He didn't make excuses. He simply acknowledged the truth that sometimes love doesn't vanish. It just changes shape. That's what makes this moment so haunting. Even after the split, Vanessa's influence was still there in the way he spoke, the way he carried himself, the way he still protected their privacy. He once said that the most important thing he ever did was make sure his children grew up surrounded by love, not headlines. That mindset came from Vanessa. Her grace, her strength, her way of walking through the storm without letting it define her, all of that stayed with him. In the years after their separation, Johnny's life became far more turbulent. Lawsuits, rumors, and media trials turned his name into a battlefield. But through it all, Vanessa never joined the noise. When the world picked sides, she didn't pick any. Instead, she spoke once, only once, and said, "He is a kind, loving, and generous man. In all the years I've known him, he has never been abusive." And then she vanished from the narrative. Her silence was not weakness. It was loyalty. It was love still speaking even when the